Hi guys, this is R.A. Sweeney here to talk one last time about the Hadvarim, or the Ten Commandments plaque. So we talked through kind of the setting for the Ten Commandments and exactly how the way you break out the commandments can lead to different interpretations or different groupings of the commandments, different things like that. Um, we talked through all the 10 and some of the artwork, and so finally wanted to just talk a little bit more about the way that we should view the 10 commandments, or the applicability. There's a lot of different views out there on how we deal with the law as New Testament Christians. um, One of the more common things that I hear people talking about is, there's different types of law, and there's the ceremonial law and the civil law and different things like that. And so, some of them still apply, some don't. Kind of depends on the category of the law. And I've heard a lot of different discussions kind of along those lines. And the problem I have with all those is that none of that is anywhere in the Bible. Nowhere does the law say, like, okay, well, here's the civil law, and here's the ceremonial law, or anything like that. And yes, you can group them that way. And I don't think it's inappropriate to do so, but nowhere is that discussion there. So it's really to view that as the way I'm supposed to be reading that. To me, it's not compelling, because why wouldn't it at least mention somewhere the different groups if we're supposed to be using those and how we sort through things? Um, and so, like I said, there's a lot of different perspectives. Where I have landed with it is really that we don't really understand what the law is for. So the law is not like we think of laws. So we pass a law and it says, here's the expectations, here's the consequences, and everybody now has to follow the letter of the law. And that's not how the Jewish law worked. It's really not how any laws worked until a few hundred years ago. Laws were always a source of wisdom and guidance. And so the idea wasn't so much, here's exactly how everyone's supposed to behave. It was here's an example of when somebody displayed the kind of qualities and the attributes that we as a culture value. And so it was really imparting that sort of wisdom. um, you look through, the stories of the kings and the people of Israel, and they don't always follow the law. And it's not like, oh, well, they didn't follow the law here, and that's terrible. Sometimes, yes, but a lot of times it's just like, well, here's what they did, and it was just fine. Um, and so, it's not like the Bible even really portrays the stories that way. When you look at ancient Near Eastern law codes, none of them really are that strict. Here's the expectation, you are to follow it to the T. That's just not how laws work. And so, really, what the law was trying to do was to illustrate God's wisdom and what his kingdom looks like, in order to try to shape people into the type of people that would go and produce God's kingdom. And so the first real piece of the law that we're given is the Ten Commandments. Throughout the story of the Torah, and I know a lot of people are like, "What do you mean the story?" A lot of that is just laws, but it's not just laws. It's never okay, Article 1 this, Article 2 this, like a law code. It's a story, and it's not the most compelling way to tell a story, in my opinion, but it starts out with the story, and there's some rules that are given, and then some more problems come up, and then you get some more rules. And so it's giving you pieces of the law as you need them to apply them in the story, or in response to what had happened in the story. And so when we start to look at the Ten Commandments, it's just that first piece of wisdom that we're given. And then when we filter that through the way Jesus took it, and he's like, yeah, it said this, but like, there's so much more going on here. I'm very, very convinced that when the New Testament is talking about how Jesus is the end of the law, not that he abolished it, not that it's no longer good, but that he fulfilled it. And we as Christians are supposed to live not under the law, but in accordance with the Spirit. And so rather than having law and like, okay, well, these are the Ten Commandments, I need to keep the Ten Commandments, and that's how I'm supposed to be living. It's more, I'm supposed to be learning the wisdom of the Ten Commandments and walking with the Spirit and applying the wisdom of the law under the tutelage of the Spirit in making wise decisions about how to pursue God's kingdom. And I know that's a very vague and not concrete direction on how we use that. And I think that's the point. The law, Paul says, is supposed to be a tutor so that we learn how then to walk according to the Spirit. But that's never the goal. Adam and Eve didn't have the law, they had a tree where they would meet with God. Um, and that was always the plan. The plan was for us to have a relationship, not rules to follow. And so I'm not saying the laws don't apply. I'm not saying the Ten Commandments don't apply. I'm saying they are not how we would use a law. They are wisdom that we are supposed to learn from and then apply under the direction of the Spirit in a much broader and more dynamic sort of way than what a typical law code in our culture would be. So that's the last thing I really wanted to touch on is just, how do we view and use the law? So I hope that was valuable. I hope the whole series has been valuable. And thanks for following me along on the journey.